need a spray booth.
Welcome to the Macke Makerspace.
Hi, I'm Brother Bob Macke. I'm the curator of meteorites at the Vatican Observatory. And here at the Macke Makerspace, I've got a new toy. This airbrush. And in order to use it properly, I need a spray booth. And there are three significant constraints for this spray booth. First, it has to fit on my tiny little workbench. Second, it has to be removable so that when I'm not using it, I can pack it away and use the workbench for other things. And the third thing is, I'm on a very tight budget. And so I can't afford to purchase a commercial product. So I'm going to make one myself out of this plastic bin and a few bits and bobs I find lying around the shop, and maybe a little 3D printing thrown in for good measure. So let's get started. We're going to start by preparing the bin to receive the filter and fan that will be mounted in the back. So first I'm going to mark out roughly where they go. This is a high efficiency particulate filter. It should capture airborne airbrush paint drops very well. I'm using an ordinary Sharpie to mark the corners of the vent. And now I'll flip it over to mark the dimensions of the fan. I'm using a cheap computer fan I found on the internet. I'll kind of regret that decision later. This layer of masking tape will help when it comes time to cut out a hole in the plastic. I'm marking out a circle the same diameter as the fan. It'll become a hole so air can pass through. Cutting the hole requires power tools. Safety first. This is an off-brand rotary tool with an abrasive cutting disc. It'll make short work of that plastic. The masking tape is helping prevent the plastic from making a huge mess. But it still leaves a very rough surface. And this wouldn't be a Macke Makerspace video without some sanding, now would it? I'll tape the fan in place to hold it until I can secure it properly. And this means drilling a few screw holes in the corners. Let me introduce my little screwdriver, courtesy of Lockheed Martin. These screws came with the fan. And in no time, the fan is securely affixed to the bin. I'll put plastic tape all the way around the perimeter of the fan to block any gaps, so that it draws air only from the inside of the bin. To mount the filter, I designed a frame for it using Tinkercad. I think this looks good, so let's send it to the printer! Printing in 2D saves a lot of time, but I can't exactly build stuff out of sheets of paper. But you might remember this magic wand from a past video. Let's put it to use.
Tertium dimensionem.
Not bad at all. The frame was too big to print out as one unit, so I need to glue two parts together. And for good measure, I'll also tape them securely. They mount to the bin using spare bolts left over from when I assembled my Prusa 3D printer. And I'm taping up the gaps again so that the air has to pass through the filter. The filter pops right in. It's a bit tight, but it fits. And the frame cover will hold it in place. This can be easily removed to change the filter as needed. I'll need a power switch to turn the fan on and off. The one that I have snaps through an opening, so I need an opening for it to snap onto. The edges need a little fine adjustment because it has to fit the switch perfectly. I also need to mount a port for the power supply. I'll begin by making a tiny starter hole with my hand drill. And that will give purchase for the stepper bit to enlarge the hole to the right dimension. Before installation of the switch and stuff, there are several wires that need to be soldered together. I'm also preparing an LED strip that will run off the same switch. Now to install the wiring. The plug for the power slides into the hole. And I'll attach the wires to the switch. I need to crimp the wire connections to the switch, so I found a metal thingy I can use to hammer it down. A quick test fit just to make sure it fits once the wires are added. And now for the fan and the light wires. I'll temporarily pass them through the hole so I can attach them to the switch from a more comfortable position. Both of them get attached to the same ports on the switch. And now the switch can be snapped in place. Let's mount the LEDs. These will illuminate whatever I'm painting so I can see it clearly. I'm mounting them on the outside of the booth rather than inside to keep them from getting coated with paint over time. The light strip will just get taped into place. Another layer of transparent tape goes on the inside. If there's a buildup of paint that blocks the light, I can easily replace this tape with a clean piece. Now to tape down the loose wires. Let's test it. I'm plugging in a standard 12-volt DC power feed. The lights work, so does the fan. And now a few fiddly bits. I need a thingy to act as a shade to keep the lights from glaring in my eyes. I'll just cut that out of a random piece of cardboard. And I'll just tape it in place. This random piece of wood will serve as a platform for whatever I'm painting. But there's an issue. Neither the board nor the bin are very stable. This calls for some extra support, and these little sticks ought to do the job. Ordinary school glue does a pretty good job of securing wood to wood. I wouldn't want to make cabinetry with it, but for this job it's just fine. And they get clamped down until the glue dries, just like big boy woodworking projects. The bin itself is still unstable. A few more sticks will solve that problem. But because it's wood to plastic, a different glue is needed. Oh, that's much more stable. As an additional feature, I'm adding a plastic curtain. This will help keep fumes in until they can be vented, and will protect my project from dust and other particulates until the paint dries. Last but not least, the vented air needs somewhere to go. I got some air vent tubing and 3D printed a cowl to attach it to the fan. The tubing just slides onto the cowl and fits snugly. I've secured it further with some zip ties pulled as tight as I can get it. I designed the cowl to slide firmly into place on the fan. Now all that's left is to do some painting. Well, it's finished. I have to say there's a lot more to learn about airbrushing than I thought. I managed to cover my lab coat in a few paint drops just trying to get the paint consistency right. I definitely need a lot more practice before I try tackling some of the projects that I have planned for this. But as for the spray booth itself, it's not pretty, but it works. The point was to do it on the cheap. How cheap? I actually have no idea because most of the parts I scrounged from around the shop. The only things I bought specifically for this project were the filter, the fan, and the ventilation tubing. But hey, it works, and it's small enough that when it is done, I can pack it away and store it underneath the workbench. Now, the fan is a little underpowered, and I have ordered a larger one that's actually meant for ventilation. So I'll attach it to the other side of the tube when it arrives. And I'm already thinking of scaling this thing up since it's so tiny. I have plans to actually convert the entire workbench into a spray booth and ventilated space. And that would enable me not only to paint larger models, but also to work with some other materials such as resin that require good ventilation. This video was not sponsored by the Vatican Observatory, but I do make use of their facilities and resources. The materials and tools, including this spray booth, come out of my own personal budget. If you'd like to support the work of the Vatican Observatory, or even just to learn a little bit more about it, there is a link in the description below. Please check it out. So that's all I have for you today. Stay tuned, I've got several more projects in the pipeline. So until the next project, have a nice day.